simply insert a penny, Lincoln's head first, into your tire grooves. If you can see all of Honest Abe's head, it's time to get your tires checked by a professional.
A message from the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. And with me now is Joe Coleman, who's a deacon in the Catholic Church. How are you, Joe?
I'm very well, Michael. How are you today?
I'm outstanding. I'm just going to start this by saying that I think sex in the Catholic Church, that's an oxymoron. Catholics never have sex, do they?
Well, we hope we do. It's one of those gifts from God.
One of those gifts from God, but for procreation only, which really takes the fun out of it as far as I'm concerned.
Not true. Not true.
true.
A lot of people think that it's about procreation, but it's about promotion of the familial bond and the marital bond between a man and a woman.
Well, the old sisters of the presentation nuns used to tell me that it was for procreation only, or they would beat the hell out of me.
Michael, I had presentation nuns as well, and you are exactly right. That's what they told us.
But they were wrong. Now there's an idea.
Well, if they were wrong, it was only with the best intentions. You know, the presentation nuns were always famous for saying the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yes.
And it wasn't until later on in life that I realized that the road to heaven is paved with good intentions as well.
Good point. I'm bringing it up this way to Joe because Pope Francis seems to have taken, and Pope Francis has gotten himself in trouble a couple of times. When he first became Pope, no less a person than Glenn Beck described him as a Marxist, and that most of Pope Francis's utterings up to that point had come directly from Karl Marx. Now, this comes from Glenn Beck, a man raised a Catholic who became a Mormon. That confuses me in general.
Yeah, you know, Pope Francis, we're very lucky that we've had the last two popes have been absolutely remarkable in the sense, and you have to put St. John Paul II in there too, especially with his, teachings on the body, the physical body and what love between individuals means. But Benedict XVI and Francis are both exceedingly intelligent men, skilled in the world. Probably Benedict is a little bit more scholarly in the sense that he has wrote a lot of books, just in the way Francis has, but did a lot of theological teaching. Francis is a guy who meets us where the rubber meets the road in everyday life. And you'll remember when he first became the pontiff, he said, "Hey, you parish priest, get out there and sweat with the laity. Rub shoulders with them, eat spaghetti with them, help them take care of the chores at home. Don't be afraid to wash dishes. Don't be afraid to get down and to touch the hands of beggars."
Sure.
He's really, and that scares a lot of people. There's no getting around it, because when we get set in our ways and comfortable with our existence, particularly in the Western world, Michael, we don't want to rub shoulders with beggars and poor people and the unwashed, or in India, they would say the untouchables. But that's where we meet Christ.
That's right, but it has become increasingly dangerous to be a minister of Christ in some areas of the country. Not since perhaps Stalin demolished all the churches and put a number of the clerics to death has it been this dangerous a time in some places to be a Catholic priest.
Well, it's been you're right. It's also been exceedingly dangerous to be a Catholic priest in China. It's been exceedingly dangerous to be a Catholic priest in Latin America, and we would call Central America and South America, where we have many modern day martyrs as a result of the juntas that were controlling the governments, and ministers, priests in the church speaking out for the poor and the disenfranchised. And it got them martyrdom. That's what it got them.
Yes, it did. And maybe the priests have more, have a greater sense of assurance that they will go to heaven than ordinary people. But I never know which way I'm going. You know what I mean, Joe?
Mike, we all think that, and that's a great reason. But I had two grandmothers that between the two of them, they lived to be 100 years old each. And they used to constantly say that the only way you can miss heaven is if you want to miss heaven. And when you think about that, and you think about, the preliminary judgment that we have right after death and the final judgment when we're all gathered together, it's my hallucination that the Lord is going to say, do you want to come with me or not? It'd be about that simple. And the problem is that the training ground, which has been our life to get ready to answer that question, in some instances, I think will prohibit people, and they will say, no, I don't care to go with you. We saw that before God started to create, the cosmos and the universe as we know it. Tradition and scholars tell us, what happened with the angel. When I have the privilege of visiting with the classes at St. Edmunds, I always tell them, there are a lot of books out about the littlest angel, the littlest angel at Christmas time and the littlest angel at Easter time, never has the right present or anything. But it's kind of like Clarence in It's a Wonderful Life, kind of a fumbler a little bit.
Sure.
But the smallest, the most fumbly, if you will, angel in heaven has more intellect than all of humanity from the beginning of time until we finally end the human species. They have more intellect. So the angels were given a choice at the time, and they were able to see what was going on, and with the Trinity, particularly Jesus Christ. And when it became obvious that what was going to happen, that Christ was going to become human, he was going to take on two natures, human nature and divine nature, the pinnacle of creation. Lucifer, the light bearer, stood on his hind legs and said, I will not serve. I will not adore. And primarily his problem was with the human nature of Christ. Well, so he and his legions left. And the interesting part about it is they'll never have to make that choice again. So scholars tell us that the angels had the ability to see the future in the sense that they knew what was going to happen with their judgment. And they never will ever be tempted again to have to make that choice. In other words, the angels that are with the Creator in heaven will always be there, because that capacity is now fulfilled, that they are in the light at all times. The angels in the darkness, that capacity has been fulfilled, and they will be there for all time.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. Our guest is Joe Coleman. I do want to address with you, of course, the reason we're talking about this in the first place, that the Pope has made recent statements, Pope Francis has made recent statements about pleasure in the act of sex, which is not something I've heard other popes address. You mentioned something about it, something about it when we first got started today, that sex is intended for how did you put it? A familiarity in the marriage.
For promoting the body, the family, promoting love between spouses, and for procreation. They run hand in hand.
Okay.
It was interesting. Francis, when he was doing a series of interviews for a guy named Petrini, who wrote a book called a book's coming out here called Terra Futura, the future of the world. Okay, the world in the future. And Francis was asked about that subject, and when you stop and you analyze what he had to say, I mean, it's obvious. He said, "Hey, the pleasure of food and the pleasure of sex is something beautiful given to us by the Creator, and it is meant to be enjoyed." The idea being that good pleasure, not, bestial pleasure, if you will, good pleasure comes from the Father. Why wouldn't it? I mean, it stands to reason. He wants us to be happy in this life and the next. You got that from the presentation nuns from from the time you were a little boy. Why did God make you? God made me to know Him, love Him, and serve Him in this life and to be with Him in the next. That's straight out of the Baltimore Catechism. Remember?
All right. Our guest is Joe Coleman at AM 1400 KVFT. I tell you, Joe, I found myself to be a single man in later life. I've been a single man for 22 years. Not that I haven't tried to be married, but it just didn't work out that way. So I'm leading up to the fact that I probably had sex out of wedlock with women who were totally with the program. I'm not a rapist or anything like that. But the point is, what would be the church in Pope Francis' idea of single people having voluntary, consensual, and affectionate sex?
Well, at first blush, you would say if we have free will and we're consenting adults, then no harm is being done, and we're in love with each other, why not? Isn't that what the world says to us, Michael?
Pretty much.
Why not?
Why not?
Well, of course. But when you look behind it and you try and come at it from the point of view of order, okay? You and I have talked about order before, that the Creator is the absolute author of all order that exists in the world. The idea of having those relationships without a commitment to that person, because remember what we talked about? We talked about that spousal familiarity and that spousal love goes hand in hand with procreation. Those things are bound to get inextricably bound together.
Okay.
And when you get into a situation where you have people who are not married, people who are engaging in what we, when we grew up in the 60s, called free love,
sure,
there is an inherent disorder to that. And you may, the world may say, "Oh, you're a fuddy-duddy." That's not true. There's nothing like that at all. But when you start to strip away and you start to look at the act itself and the commitment of the act, and not only the commitment to the other person, but to the potential commitment to children, it is a highly sacred and ordered thing. You and I talked months ago when we started this program about we got out of the Garden of Eden with two things. Remember, we had all these what we call preternatural gifts. We had infused knowledge that we knew everything. We had transcendence in the sense that we could travel at the speed of thought. We never were going to get sick. We were never going to die. And then original sin enters the picture where we basically, the Creator tells us to do something and we say, no, we won't do it. So we were taken out of the Garden of Eden. When we were taken out of the Garden of Eden, we left with two things, Mike. We left with our free will and we were left with the power to create.
We have just
create with the creator.
I'm going to throw
That's
this.
what-
I'm going to Joe. We got to go to the break here, but I'm going to come back with you with this question. This is where I get in trouble with the Catholic Church and with Catholics in general. I find it hard to believe that a loving God would look at sex between consenting adults who have great affection for them as some sort of a bad thing. But we'll talk about that in the next segment. Thank you, Joe.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Microban 24 protects against Staphylococcus aureus and Enterobacter aerogenes bacteria, but does not provide 24-hour protection against viruses. Every time you touch a surface, you leave behind bacteria. To keep surfaces sanitized all day, use Microban 24. Spray on hard surfaces to kill 99.9% of viruses and bacteria initially. Once dry, Microban 24 is effective for 24 hours on bacteria when used as directed. Microban 24 sanitizing spray, bathroom, and multi-surface cleaner.
Ride the bus!
Midas is going your way this fall. If you live in Hamilton, Pocahontas, Calhoun, or Humboldt counties and want to go somewhere special, Midas will take you there. Need to get to school, the hair salon, the doctor, the grocery store? Midas will take you there. Just call 573-8145. Call now and Midas will take you there in Hamilton, Pocahontas, Calhoun, or Humboldt County. Midas, your connection to Jefferson Lines.
Our job here is getting you there. Ride the bus!
When you were a teenager, your garage was the beginning of your rock and roll dreams. Later on, your garage was a place to store whatever didn't fit in the house. Then you got the car of your dreams. And that's not staying outside at night, no, sir. That's where we come in.
P&R Entry Doors is your one-stop source for installation and repairs. As an official Midland garage door dealer, we have everything you need for any size garage in any situation. PNREntryDoors.com.
Senate candidate Teresa Greenfield's signature? A path of destruction for Iowa small businesses, Iowa jobs, and Iowa workers. Greenfield left a company where she was an executive, $29 million in debt, defaulting on loans, leaving unemployed Iowans in her wake. And what did Greenfield do? She jumped ship and signed on to another big shot executive job at another company, where she personally signed the notices to kick small businesses to the curb, putting even more Iowans out of work and making way for a big foreign-owned chain store to move in. That's Teresa Greenfield, taking care of herself while her company collapsed and leaving Iowa small businesses and Iowa workers behind. It's time we leave Teresa Greenfield behind. Senate Leadership Fund paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. www.senateleadershipfund.org.
During this challenging and unprecedented time, Gunderson's is here to serve with expert guidance and understanding to each family and their unique needs. We provide options for funeral, cremation, memorial, virtual, and webcast services, either presently or at a later date. We understand that grief does not wait. We are trained to help you walk this path to bring comfort and support. Every life deserves to be recognized and celebrated, whether it be together or afar.
All right, I'm Michael Devine. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with Joe Coleman right after the news. It's 4 o'clock. This is KVFD Fort Dodge.
It's everything digital on the Kim Komando Show every Saturday from 11 to 2 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
They cordially agree to disagree. Lisa Brady, Fox News. California's governor conceding the state could do better with land management. President Trump agreeing to respect a difference of opinion on climate change, helping to fuel more widespread and destructive western wildfires. This as he visited California, meeting with the governor and awarding medals to 7 of the National Guard troops who helped rescue campers earlier this month.
We want to thank all of the brave fighters. We want to thank these incredible people, the first responders, service members who are racing to the extreme peril, really, of their lives and extreme danger.